Yeah, what's good, Joe? It's your man, the Bigga P, and I'm here to talk about my post-fight thoughts about the Mayweather-Guerrero pay-per-view. First, we'll start off with the undercard fights. First one was Love versus Rosado. Now, for opener, it was a pretty entertaining fight. Definitely got interesting. Once Rosado was able to drop Love, um, in a fight for a knockdown, it was the first time I think Love has ever been down. And it was close at some point, but Rosado to me pulled it away. I mean, I'm not saying it was it was cause I wouldn't say it was close, but it wasn't wide. I mean, I thought Rosado had that fight by at least a couple rounds. Definitely was not Love, not especially in the last couple rounds where Love was just it was getting outworked and rocked. So imagine my surprise when I heard a split decision. I'm thinking, okay, maybe Rosado's gonna get the split decision, and it wasn't the case. And that was, to me, I mean, that was a robbery because Rosado clearly beat dude. It was to the point where after I watched the fight, I got a couple phone calls from people. It was like, Pat, I know you saw that fight. What do who do you think won? And I tell him like straight up, Rosado won that fight. And like, me too. Like, Love didn't do anything. I'm like, it's boxing. Love is Floyd's boy, so he's down with that. He's down with the money team, and any close decisions, it's gonna go to them, unless you knock him down a couple more times, which is what happened. Um, I mean, I thought Rosado was a little bit more tentative than he probably usually is in fights, because Rosado's usually like in your face, and I thought he showed him a little bit too much respect. Um, but like I said, it was a clear victory for him. To at least on my cards. So yeah, maybe a rematch is in order. Probably on the next Floyd card or next Money Team pay per view or whatever. I would definitely, and I would hope Rosado this time will take matters in his own hand and just pretty much knock him out in the next couple rounds or so. The second fight was okay. Cruz, yeah, Cruz versus Muniz. You have to forgive me about that. I did drink a little bit early in the day, so you know, sometimes I have slip of the memory. But yeah, Cruz was once again impresses me. Like Cruz is probably one of the best combination punchers in the game. Every time he throws something, like it's like his head body combinations are just absolutely spectacular. That body work he did on Muniz was outstanding, and the fight itself was a nice little slugfest. And Muniz was like, he's gonna stand there and trade with him, and it led to some very spectacular rounds. But there's only so much you can do. But Cruz was the bigger guy, and Cruz just absolutely rocked him, repeatedly and dropped him. And Muniz was a man for actually getting up and actually coming through for another beating. But like I said, it only delayed the inevitable. I mean the stoppage was correct because it was getting to the point where Muniz was probably, because his head was getting snapped back. It was getting to the point where Muniz was probably gonna get stretched if they continued the fight. But thank goodness they didn't get to that point. Cruz, once again appears to be really impressive, and I definitely look forward to watching more of his fights in the future because he's been probably the last ever since the Morrell fight. Dude's just been impressing me big time. So I definitely look forward to any more of his future fights. And brings us to the co-main event: Mares versus Ponce de Leon. Now this fight. Now let's put it this way. Now this fight, and obviously, was the potential show stealer. It wasn't the show stealer per se, but it was a really good fight. Um, I mean, Mares showed. I mean, I didn't think Mares would be able to even hurt Ponce de Leon, but he dropped him twice in the fight. I'm thinking to myself, wow. I didn't think Mares had that type of power to bother him. But Ponce was coming out strong. Like, the fight was close. Ponce was catching him with left hands. Mars was starting to tire in the later rounds, and Ponce de Leon started catching him with them left hands, and he was starting to put in that absolute work. But he stood up. He pretty much was standing up too straight. His chin was out there, and Morris was, that second knockout where Morris caught him, that was a killer. But what killed this fight though was that early stoppage. Yes, Dillon was on the ropes. His hands were not that down. His Dillon was looking at Morris. He was throwing back. It wasn't like he was getting rocked and his head was getting snapped back. He was just taking punch. He was still in a position to actually fight. And Nady decided to say hold up, and I thought that was nonsense. So Ponce de Leon could fight. This is he's not a guy that you know and he's not a guy that that goes into absolute distress. I mean, he was on the ropes and he was battling back. You got to give the man a shot at that. After all, he's the champion. And I thought that stoppage was way too early. But I mean, regardless of the fight, I mean, the scores were close, but Mars actually did good work. And for once, he didn't throw any low blows, although he received a really vicious one from Ponce in this fight. So he got a little taste of his own medicine. But Mars, continues to impress me. Although like I said, that memory of the first Rebecca fight is still in my head. But that what he did to Ponce de Leon, who I am high on, who I'm a big fan of, goes a long way to changing my whole my whole idea, my whole belief, my whole feelings about him. So yeah, like I said, it wasn't the show stealer that everyone expected it to be, but it was a really good fight. Which brings us to our main event, Floyd Mayweather versus Robert Guerrero. Now this fight, this is the fight where because I know, I wanted Robert to of course use the jab and go to the body and then show a plan B. The plan B didn't come, which led to Floyd figuring out Guerrero by round 3, and by round 7, it was a glorified sparring match. I expected more of Guerrero because I thought, at least he'd get him to the ropes, at least try to do some work against him, try to rough him up a little bit. But Floyd, I mean, Floyd got on the ropes and then, he'd move away. Guerrero, I mean, pretty much by 7, Guerrero didn't know what to do. He wasn't he tried the body work late in the fight, and that wasn't working. Floyd pretty much was just picking them off. No, I mean, of course, instead of using that shoulder roll, the Philly shell, he used the high guard and was just pretty much picking Robert over and over again. And Robert just didn't adjust, and he hadn't figured it out. And it's like, hell, I was even saying to myself, maybe Robert should just go righty, just to throw him off. But the scores of 117, 111. I mean, there's no disagreement at that score. I mean, hell, I think I had that 116, 112 in that fight. But Floyd, legs did look a little slow. Reflexes did look a little slower. That was a sign. But unfortunately for Robert, Robert Guerrero was not the man physical sense to actually take advantage of that, since Robert is not that fast himself. But Floyd fought a clinic. He basically figured him out and picked them apart. Only pretty much Robert's chin probably kept him up in the fight. But my hats off to Floyd, and I'm not really the biggest fan of Floyd in terms of how he conducts his his fight business and who he fights and whatnot. That's the part that makes me sour on him. But as a boxer, he really is a special type of fighter. He's a great on that level, and basically picking apart Guerrero the way he did was a clinic. And where I was from the fight part, I mean, there was a lot of people who was like, oh, he was just running. Oh, how can you not slugging with him? Basically, people still don't understand that Floyd Mayweather is not a slugger. He's not a brawler. He doesn't do all that stuff. You won't ever catch Floyd in a fight of the year candidate at all, because that's not him. Floyd is hit and not get hit and take as least damage as possible, in order to win the fight. He won't take a risk. And there's a lot of people out there, and it's funny to me how many people out there don't understand that. Yes, Floyd talks a whole lot of shit. And that's what he hypes fight. and then they go in there and they see what he does, and he does, and what he does is literally unparalleled. Very few fighters do it. You know, he's a unique fighter, but they're like, oh yeah, no, this fight is boring, blah 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 blah. Oh, this fight is, you know, boxing is terrible, boxing is gay, you know, all that other stuff, and it's like, you paid $70 to watch Floyd. You know, don't, you know, you're the moron. Floyd did his job to hype the fight. You paid $70, and if you can't appreciate what the man did, then that's your fault. That's, you know, not Floyd's. So I just wanted to bring that light. But as not for Guerrero, I mean, I was disappointed. I expected a little bit more from him. I was hoping that he would adjust and actually do something to throw Floyd off his room. But it seemed like his plan was to outbox him, which is like, why? You're not gonna do that. You don't, that you know. I mean, it's honorable strategy, but that wasn't going to be to outbox the man. Um, but hey, I mean, Robert gave it a good go. I mean, he showed a chin. He was gracious. Like, I mean, he put up a fight, and you know, I can't, you know, you can't do nothing but to applaud that type of effort. You know. But yep, that's pretty much my post-fight thoughts about the whole pay-per-view. Overall, was a good night of fights. Not really, like I said, not one that I would say, you know, it's a fight of the year candidate, but just, you know, all four fights were just solid affairs. You know, and hey, that's all we can ask for, at least. You know, if you know, pay $70, you know, you'd want that type of, you know, at least say that all four fights were solid. Um, so yep, that's about it. So I'm about to probably go on my forums like as I usually do, and talk about the fights and the pay per view some more. All right, until next time, peace.